So what is actually getting in your way? Today, we are talking about how to stop waiting for permission and how to start becoming it. If you're ready to build your legacy in real time, you are in the right place. Let's go. Welcome to Women of Color Live, the live version of Women of Color, an intimate conversation, a top 20 women's empowerment podcast. We center and empower women of color. We also have a community for Black women 50 plus, the Dream Lifestyle Collective. Before I welcome our guests, shout out to the production team at the Leon Thomas Group. And a special shout out to Oren, who is on the ones and twos today. So today's guest is Dr. Brandy Peer. She is the CEO of BMPowered Consulting. She's an identity architect and consultant helping ambitious women step into their most authentic selves. And for this month, April, we're highlighting women who build legacy in real time. Dr. Brandy, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. So, Dr. Brandy, let's go ahead and get into this conversation. And by the way, those who are watching, drop WOC so we know you're out there. Drop Dreamer if you're part of the Dream Lifestyle Collective. And drop a heart if you're a family member. And also, we're taking questions. So go ahead and get your questions ready and drop those as well. So, Dr. Brandy, who were you before the title, the credential, and the build? What was the decision that shifted how you saw yourself as someone built to lead?
So I would say that the person that I was, on the outside, I had it all together, right? I looked like I had the degrees, I had the good job, I was in that six-figure field, but I just couldn't figure it out. Something was just off. And I had to figure out what that meant, right? I talk to people all the time, and I keep saying, I want to help women get out of their own way, because for some reason I was in my own ways and I didn't know what that meant. And so for me, who I was before the identity architect title, which, was a working thing because I couldn't figure out what it was. I was that woman who I had it all together on the outside, but something was missing and something was misaligned on the inside. And so, what I had to realize is I had to get out of my own way. And what that meant is identifying what those behaviors were, and I call them patterns, and we'll probably get into that a little bit more, but what those self-destructive or self-sabotaging patterns were that were stopping me from getting out there and doing the things that I wanted to do, holding myself back, playing small, shrinking because I wanted to make everybody else happy, that I was losing myself in that process. So that's who I was before I became who I am today.
And what you said is very key. And I think many women, many Black women, many women of color, we do that. One, we get in our own way. Like, I know I do. Like, I'm like in my way right now with some things. And, so, hey, it is what it is. I'm putting out, I'm aware of it, right? And I'm doing what I need to do to get out of my way. And so I love that. And then it's also, what you said as far as identifying those things that are getting in your way and then making some changes to get in alignment.
Yeah.
So I see something behind you. What is that behind you? Like little clips of things. What's going on with that? And how does that fit into what you do?
So that behind me, yes, it's very, very filled, is my vision board. And so it pretty much helps remind me of, again, how do I get out of my own way? There are a lot of things that, I say that I want to do. There are a lot of things that, I want to accomplish, but what's stopping me, right? A lot of times we spend our lives saying, well, if this didn't happen, or it's not the right time, or, well, when I get brave enough to do something, And the thing about it is you don't gain confidence until you do something. You don't know what you need to fix until you actually start something. And we all, we always say, well, when I get this credential or when I get this, amount of time or find the right time, there's never going to be the right time to chase your dream. It's always going to be something that's inconvenient. And we rationalize ourselves out of doing something because we're scared, right? We don't acknowledge the fear, the fear of messing up, and that's perfectionism. That's one of those patterns I talk about is, we get so caught up in our perfectionism that we just don't move. We're so afraid to mess up that we then just don't do anything. And then we live in the shoulda, couldas, and wouldas. And what would it have been if I had done this then, right? And so the vision board helps keep me focused, and I have notes as well. What you can't see directly right above my head is there's a sign that says you are amazing. There is a reminder right there so that when I'm on this camera and I'm looking and talking to clients and talking to other people, that is also my reminder that you are amazing. Like you are enough. You have more than enough. And you don't have to find reasons why, or reasons to stop yourself from doing something. You just need to do it. And then it's okay to be afraid. Do it scared. That's what I tell people is do it scared. Because if you never do it, then you don't know, one, you can. And two, if you do need to tweak something, now once you started it, now you can figure out how to tweak it. But if you never start and you feel like, oh, I need to check off all the boxes before I start, you just won't start.
Absolutely. And you know what? So you're talking about me right here. You're talking about the me that I was almost 6 years ago. So let me tell you, next Friday, April 10, the podcast celebrates 6 years. Okay. And it's exactly 6 years because it was a Friday. It was Good Friday 6 years ago when I launched the podcast. And I launched it exactly what you just said. I just did it. I felt the fear and did it anyway. And I had the day before I realized through conversation with a coach, as well as reading Brene Brown's book. And the first thing that she had in there was being vulnerable, vulnerability. And I'm like, oh my God, that's what it is. I have a fear of being vulnerable. So the very next day, I Nike'd it and just did it. And again, we're here 6 years later on the live version of the podcast. And again, I'm here 6 years later. I have almost 200 episodes. Okay. Most of them are with women. So giving women the platform to use their voices, which is one of my core reasons for having the podcast. And also being a top 20, number 16 to be exact, women's empowerment. And all of that is huge. And I wouldn't have it if I didn't just do it. I wouldn't have it if I didn't do everything that you're talking about, which is doing it scared, doing it anyway, and building as you go. Because I definitely believe in, flying a plane as you build or whatever they say.
Right.
That's
right.
me. I believe in that.
Build it as you fly it as you build it. All that. Right.
All that.
Absolutely. And for me, it took the pandemic because we realized life could be taken away from us so unexpectedly to actually start my business. I wanted to do the business, probably 10 years prior to that. But again, I got in my own way. I'm like, oh, well, I need to get this credential. I need to be certified. I need to get this. I need to study this. I need to make sure. I thought that I wasn't enough. No. I thought that what I already had wasn't enough. Now, I will also, on the flip side, say, maybe I wasn't ready because the name of my business came to me, that was divine intervention in the middle of the night. And, I asked myself, what did I want people to be, and, when they were done with me? Right. And after I've coached them through or I've trained them or whatever it is, what did I want them to be? And, God said 3:00 in the morning, I popped out of my bed, and it said be empowered. But the trick to that is those are my initials, right? So a lot of businesses, you put your name in the business. So the BMP, those are my initials. So it flowed out. I said, hey, that's God. So maybe I wasn't ready at the time and I didn't know that. And I wasn't ready, not because I didn't have the credentials, but because I wasn't fully ready or dedicated to do what I needed to do. So everything does happen for a reason. It is divine timing. But I do know that I could have probably done it sooner if I had, done it while I was scared. And eventually the pandemic said, well, you know what? If you don't do it while you're scared, like life, we don't know if tomorrow's going to be here. Yeah. And you don't want to, get to that moment where you're like, dang, I wish I would have. And so I did it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I absolutely love that. It's your initials because I was looking at it and I'm like, okay, be empowered, right? Still
Yeah,
not even, clued in on it being your initials, but just seeing how creative you were with the be empowered. And it did absolutely flow. And you know what? And see, that's a thing as well. It's okay. It's okay if you're not ready, right? Because you do have to be ready,
right,
right? So that doing it, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, you still have to be ready. So we're
right,
not just saying just go out there, you're afraid and you're not ready. No, we're not saying that. We're saying be ready to receive what it is that you want, right? You're scared to do that. Like me, I thought it needed to look a certain way, be a certain way. And
yep,
so I didn't move forward. And then at the same time, I started looking at other podcasts to see what they look like. And I'm like, you know what? I love these podcasts. They are so inspiring and they're not polished. So I'm like, girl, go and do it. Right.
yeah,
Because it's more about the conversations. It's about what you're sharing with people, how it moves people, and less about how it presents itself. And again, you can get to that, right, as you
right,
continue to learn, but you have to start. And that is the key. So I'm so glad that you went ahead and you got started and you did the thing, right? And yes,
absolutely.
like you said, it was timing because God told you at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Woke me
here's
up.
the thing,
Yep.
right? He hadn't told you that
And
before.
the thing about it is, I learned that impact has nothing to do with design, right? It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be pretty to be impactful. And so, if you do it right, what it looks like, it could look, I mean, I won't say it looked like trash, but like it doesn't have to be pristine to have the impact that you wanted to have. What's going to matter is how you made them feel and
yeah,
how you help them transform and become who they wanted to be in their most authentic selves, but not because my website was pretty. And now again, that's one of the check marks is I needed a website. I needed to make
yeah,
sure it was pretty. I needed to make sure that, these pieces are designed. No, I didn't. But I mean, obviously, I needed the legalities. I needed a business name. I needed the EIN. I needed tax ID. Like I needed those things. But I
yes.
didn't need a website to be able to be as impactful as I knew that I could be, because this was a gift that I knew that I had, and kind of being selfish, holding it to myself because I'm scared to put it out there. There are people who are waiting for that gift, but if I never put it out there, they'll never receive it.
Yes, and that is exactly what my coach said to me. He said there are people who are waiting to hear from you. Like you and I can say the same thing to the same crowd, but it will only resonate coming from you because it's your voice that they're waiting on. And you're absolutely right. And I love that you said that part about being selfish because when we have gifts, when we know that that is a gift of ours, is something we're passionate about, we love to do, we just do it naturally and we
Right.
keep it from people. Yeah, we are being selfish, right? We are keeping something from people. And when we do step into our authenticity, step into our truth, live up to our gifts, we're allowing people to do the same thing. We're allowing them to go ahead and say, well, you know what? Well, if she did that thing, then I'm going to do the thing as well.
Yep.
Whatever that thing might be.
Whatever that thing is, because how do I tell somebody to go do you and I'm over here not doing me? So
You're right.
to be the hypocrite to tell you you should do X, Y, and Z, but I'm over here, scared and holding myself back and playing small because I'm afraid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yes, again, those who are watching, drop in the chat to let us know you're out there. Put WOC, put Dreamer if you're part of the Dream Lifestyle Collective, drop a heart if you are a family member, and drop those questions because we want to answer your questions as well. So, Dr. Brandy, one more question before we go to break. You work with women who are clearly capable, but something keeps getting in the way. And you talked about that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you almost always find at the root of that?
Using me as an example, me, right? But the thing about it is, and one thing that I actually, the thing that I coach people on, and the reason why I call myself an identity architect, or rather the identity architect, is because through digging and mining, I figured out what the things are, right? And there are self-sabotaging patterns.
Mm.
Like a lot of times, just like I talked about, perfectionism, where not, the kind of the thought is nothing will ever be done right. I can never, like, it'll not be perfect. And so what do? We procrastinate because I'd rather not mess up, so I just don't do it. I'd rather not make a mistake, so I just don't do it. Or, nothing is ever good enough, right? And that could be self as well. So perfectionism, that's a pattern. It's a pattern of behavior because at one point it kept us safe, right? Perfectionism, drives excellence and drives achievement. And, we get rewarded when things look great and we do well. Like we seek that external validation because that defines our value. That defines our worth, because somewhere along the line, we are questioning our value and our worth internally. Like I said, we're not thinking we're good enough. Nothing's ever enough. I'm not enough. And so we don't do certain things because of that fear, but that fear of messing up, but also that fear of being judged. So perfectionism is one of those patterns that is the root cause. Another one that comes up is like,
you know what, Dr. B, before you answer that, let's go ahead and take a quick break.
All right.
Hi, I'm Deneen L, Garrett, a cultural alchemist who shapes culture through storytelling, through writing, through speaking, through my top 20 women's empowerment podcasts. And if you're seeing this, you're watching me on Women of Color Live, the live version, the weekly live version of that podcast. I am coming to you to ask you to vote for me. I am in the running to become entrepreneur of impact, and it's going to take all of us to get me there. So check this out and stay tuned. All right. Well, welcome back to Women of Color Live. We are talking about women who build with Dr. Brandy Peer. And before Dr. B continues talking about the root causes of the barriers, I want to also acknowledge that Dr. B is also in the contest, Entrepreneur of Impact. Right now, we're not competing, so that's a good thing. So it's okay for you to vote for both of us. And I just wanted to throw that out there, right? Because again, it's about empowering women, right? And there's space and room for all of us. And that's how we build and that's how we move through life and create legacy and all the things by supporting one another. So Dr. B, you talked about procrastination as one of those root cause of barriers. What else?
So another one that comes up is proving, right? The need or the desire to feel like you have to prove something to somebody outside of you, right? So again, when I talked about before, we get the degrees, we get the promotions, and let me not take away from the fact that we want those things, that we want to earn those things. But some people, it becomes, kind of that overuse of it. And you feel like I have to do these things to prove it to other people. One of mine, I say I'm in rehab for, is the people pleaser, right? And so trying to keep everything harmonious, I used to shrink and I used to play small. So now, one example, I put the doctor on my name. I mean, I paid the money for it. I studied for it. It wasn't easy, but I used to, in the beginning, I played small, oh, Brandy, and it was my friends, it was my family who were like, no, you're a doctor, right? So that was me shrinking and humbling myself and not acknowledging my accomplishments because I didn't want to seem like too much. And I know there are a lot of women out there who you either feel like you're not enough or you're too much. Mm-hmm. So if you feel like you're on the too much side, you play small. But I promise you, and one thing that I learned, you are just enough for the right people. And if you are too much for somebody, they are not the right people.
Not your people. Yes, say that.
So I had to break out of this people pleasing and that family, friends, whoever it is, because I used to make decisions to please my family. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of the things that I do now and who I am today, I broke a lot of cycles, right? Having these degrees, my first move, I moved across country from California to New York with a suitcase and made a life. These are not things that I saw in my history, but they are things that I wanted to do, right? And so I had to learn to stop making decisions for other people because they were comfortable and instead do what made it feel right for me. What was right for me, even if it looked different than what I was used to seeing.
Yeah, you know what? And so many different things I want to pull out of what you said. And you said this several times, and I wanted to go back to that playing small because we do that. And I do agree with you. Either we're too much or we're shrinking. We're
Mm.
playing small. And we need to stop. Period. We need to stop that, right? Show
Yeah.
up in your fullness. Show up who you are, and the right people will be there for you, right? And if somebody has an issue with you, they're not your people. They're not the right people. They're not folks that you're going to, you should build with. They're people for you to like, okay, you're cool over there. But
Right.
I'm going in this direction. I'm doing these things. I have accomplished. And we have to remind ourselves of who we are, right? Like you said, we have to remind ourselves who TF we are. And so,
Right. And
by
that's
the way,
actually what
like for me,
my
yeah,
friend told me that exact same thing. She says, the same way you said, remember who TF you are, and feel what you feel, but then remember who you are and whose you are. Again,
absolutely
because
that.
you are God's gift, right? So remember who you are and whose you are, and don't shrink that. Because again, like we talked about before, there are people waiting to hear your gifts and see your gifts, but if you keep shrinking them, then they miss out.
They miss out, right? And so maybe for those people, because there are people who, they're humble, and it's like, oh, I don't really want to, what a lot of people call bragging, but it's not. Because
Right.
when it's a fact, it's a fact.
Right.
Oh, I don't want it. So then flip it. Then get away from yourself. Think about the people who you're not serving when you're
Right.
not walking in your fullness. Think about the people who are missing out because you are not showing up in your fullness. Another thing I wanted to point out as well is you mentioned about the time and whatnot. And I had shared this, I think I had posted this in the collective, but I was at the Women of Power Summit a few weeks ago. And Bozeman St. John, she mentioned how her husband had got his cancer diagnosis 6 months before he passed. And so the point of her mentioning that was saying that in that 6 month span, he was gone. So live your life.
Yeah.
Don't wait for anything. If you want it, go for it. Figure it out. Like I love Richard Branson, founder of Virgin, all the things Virgin Atlantic, Voyages, all the things. He has this quote, and I kind of paraphrase it, but when somebody presents you with an opportunity, say yes and figure it out.
Right.
Do that. Say yes to yourself, because that's who you have to say yes to first. And then figure out how to make happen what you want to make happen. We talked about your business. That's kind of what you did with your business. We talked about this podcast. That's what I did with the podcast. I went ahead and said, okay, fine, I'm doing it, and built it out over time. And then, you mentioned procrastinating, people pleasing, and again, the playing small is some of the barriers. What other barriers would you like to point out that is probably important for those who are watching or listening to know?
I would say I'll give like two more. So one being hyper independence, and then the second one being control.
Ooh,
right?
Ooh.
I know. Hyper independence, right? I got to do it myself, right? And a lot of that comes from, and I'm guilty. Somebody has failed us in our life before, Ooh. Right? So you lose trust. You lose the trust in the fact that, if I give this to somebody, they're going to be able to handle it and take care of it. Right. And that could be in a professional space. Right. So some people don't delegate things because if I don't do it, it's not going to get done right. What is that? What does right mean? Right. It's my way. And so I tie in hyper independence and control because they kind of tie together. Is I got to do it myself because it's not going to get done right. Also ties into like they all connect, perfectionism, but the control piece, right? Again, control means safety. If I can't control it, it doesn't feel safe. It's dangerous, right? And again, that goes back to, feeling like, losing control, you can't protect anything. And I always have this joke with my friend, I can control the degrees that I get, but I can't control who loves me, right? And so that in itself, you talked about vulnerability, and I read the same book. There's that vulnerability piece. And if you have control, you're protecting your vulnerability because somebody violated that vulnerability before, right? They took your vulnerability as weakness, or they took advantage of it. And when you gave them that vulnerability, they threw it back in your face. So if I have control, I'm protecting myself from getting hurt, or getting used again, or having my vulnerability used against me. And so I think those are like the top 5 that I typically see as root causes as to why we get in our own way. So going back, it's the perfectionism, people pleasing, proving, hyper independence, and control.
Wow. Wow. Because you know what, when you said that hyper independence, I'm like, ooh, she talking about me. I will tell you, there was a situation, and after it was all said and done, when I started sharing it with other people, person on my team said to me, you should have told us. Like, you're wrong for not telling us. It was about me. It was a personal situation. And he's like, you didn't have to do it alone. You didn't have to go alone. Right. And so everything that you're saying, because maybe at some point somebody didn't come through for us. Right. And we held on to that thing for the longest. And it could have been a small thing. It could have been years ago. It could have really been a misperception. But whatever it was, we held on to it. And then it just impacted the rest of our lives and how we moved through. Right. And then control.
Yeah, it bruised us. And, every person you interact with is not the person that hurt you. Yes. But we bring that, they talk about baggage. We bring that past into our future and wonder why we struggle. Like, why it, because we are getting in our own way, because we're not trusting that this person is not going to be that person, and it is hard being vulnerable. And, it's a lesson I've learned over just like the last couple of years. And actually, I think it was in 2023 or 2024, I had to write this talking piece for this presentation I was doing on a stage. And I had to, the goal was to tap into that thing, right? That thing that you don't want to tap into, because that is the heart of your story. And that was it. That was it, is that being vulnerable, trusting people. I had found my tribe. And that was, I'm in my 40s, and there were a lot of years between, that moment and prior to that, where I didn't trust people enough to say, you know what, like your team told you, you didn't have to do that alone. Yeah. A lot of times you don't have to do things alone, but we do it because you're afraid to be vulnerable with the wrong people. Yes. At the same time, how then, again, going back to this selfish thing, how then do you build these deep relationships with people if you don't let them in? Mm-hmm. Right? You want them to let you in, right? You tell me everything. Like, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm your open ear. You can tell me anything. You can trust me. And yet we're not spitting. Like, when they try to do the thing for us, we're like, I'm not, I can't do it. And so again, we talk about being hypocritical. How do we want somebody to trust us, but then we're not willing to trust them?
Absolutely. And, and I also think that, yes, the vulnerability, the fear, I also believe, well, it's still the fear. I think it's a fear of being vulnerable. And then I also think it's a fear of success as well. Like, I think about Akilah the Bee and that poem that she read, I believe is by Marion, somebody, Wilkerson or something like that. But anyway, about, our greatest fear is actually being a success. Getting all the things that we say we want. Yeah, I think that's part of it as well.
It is. It's absolutely a fear of success, because the thing about it is, we're comfortable where we are. Yes. No matter it's fear of failure or fear of success, we're comfortable where we are. And just a quick snippet. Like, I just moved in June. Like, again, I know I moved to New York, but I moved in June because I wanted to be full-time in my business. I wanted to be a full-time entrepreneur. And like I told you, looking at living through other people's expectations, or feeling like I had to people please, this didn't please a lot of people. Me up and quitting my good job and focusing full time on my entrepreneurship. But the thing about it is, the fear of success, right? What's going to happen, because it will, when I do blow up, am I going to, what does that come with? And so a lot of times we get stuck in the bubble of, well, let me struggle because I'm comfortable with struggling. Let me suffer. Let me fight because I'm comfortable with fighting. But if there's a life on the other side that is abundant and you don't have to fight, yes, you need those skills because you still need those fighting skills to run your business, but you don't have to struggle. And so to choose struggle because that's where you're comfortable, and that's a lot of people. A lot of people choose to struggle because that's where they're comfortable, rather than taking the steps to not have to struggle. I'm taking the steps so I don't have to struggle, because what I want to do is I want to fight for my impact, and I want to fight to help a lot of people, but I don't want to have to be fighting myself. Like, in whatever way that means, I don't want to have to fight myself. So yes, a lot of us, we are afraid of success as well, because what does it look like on the other side? And is that going to change me, or what's going to happen? And, will I become so big I can't figure out what to do with it? They got professionals that can help, coaches like me. They got therapists. They got, we can make it happen. Like, don't not do something because you are afraid of what's going to be on the other side.
Absolutely. That's the figure out part that I said of that quote, right? When something was presented to you, you want something, whatever, figure it out. Do it, say yes, and then figure it out. And there's people to help and support you. So give me like 3 things that we should do. So we've talked a lot about the barriers and, all the things, the playing small, the perfectionism, procrastinating, people pleasing, hyper independence and control. Maybe like what's 3 things that we should do instead?
Number 1, do.
Right? I love it.
Number 1,
just do it.
Like number 1, 2, and 3 are probably do it, but also do it scared. Believe in yourself the way you believe in other people. Again, we are our greatest critics and the greatest advocates for other people. And we need to be able to be our own advocate and flip that around. I would say give yourself the compassion, grace, and mercy you give other people. Because again, as your number 1 critic, we fight ourselves. We talk about all the things that are wrong and all the things we can't do. But if one of my friends actually said, if you were telling this to me, or if you were telling this to another friend, what would you say? And I'd be so much nicer. I'd be so much more of a cheerleader. Like, no, you can do it. So being able to play that role for yourself, right? Don't beat yourself up. We all mess up. We all, again, if you do it scared, you're going to mess up. You're going to fumble a little bit. But the thing about it is, what do you do when you get back up? Right? Look at your resilience and be proud of yourself. Like, I'm proud of myself for all the choices that I made that I could have been like, I don't know that I can do this. You get to see how resilient you are. And again, confidence comes from practice. So I would say do it scared, and then give yourself the grace, compassion, and mercy you give other people. So ask yourself, what would I tell my friend? What would I tell my family member? And if what you would tell them sounds a lot nicer than what you're telling yourself, then you need to go ahead and play nice with yourself.
Absolutely. Right. And maybe record it. Like, if you're whatever you say to somebody, record that and play it back for yourself. And, one thing that I do, and I'm a proponent of this. So however you keep track of things, whether it's writing it down, typing it up on your laptop, voice notes, whatever it is, keep track of your wins, regardless of the size. Any win, like what happened with me. Yesterday I had getting a refund from something, right? It was something that I held myself accountable by holding someone else accountable, and that resulted in me getting a refund. So that's kind of small, right? But I'm celebrating myself on that. We're both celebrating ourselves on being part of the Entrepreneur of Impact process. And that's a huge process. And, the visibility and exposure that comes along with that, right? So that's a win as well. You're preparing for, I hope it's okay to mention.
Go for it.
Okay, TEDx. Okay, that's huge, right? So we again, remind yourself who TF you are. In a way of doing that is keeping track. So again, however you keep track, write it down, voice notes, etc. Remind yourself and read it often.
Right. And also, one thing I want to add to that is, even if we define the win as small, it's big to me, right? Yeah. It's big because if it took a lot for me to take that step, it's big to me. And, and I say that because I don't want us to also minimize, oh, it was just this. Because again, that's us playing small and humbling ourselves and humbling our accomplishments as if it wasn't a big deal. If it's something you really wanted, even if it was small, but it took you forever to do it, it's big to you, right?
Yeah.
So I say celebrate them all as big wins, because every win it gets bigger, right? It's like that, the avalanche, like that little snowball gets bigger and bigger, and eventually you start to kind of automate that confidence.
Yeah.
And it's no longer something that you do scared, but it's like, I got this. Like, you see what I did before, and that's one of the things I had to tell myself. I've done hard things before, right?
Yes.
Like I said, I moved across country with nothing but a suitcase, and I made the life. Like I lived in the East Coast for about 20 years when it was only supposed to be 2. But I made a life and I survived, and I learned that, everyone who knows it, if you can live in New York City, you can live pretty much anywhere.
Wow. Listen, hey.
I managed 20 years. I think I got it.
I think you got it too.
I had to celebrate that, right? Because even just the fact that I moved and my entire family is on the West Coast, so nobody was there. There was nobody to run to, even when things, I was like, oh my God. I didn't run back home. I figured it out.
Yep.
And so I had to remind myself, girl, you've done hard before. You can do this. And that's what I have to keep telling myself whenever I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this. Girl, you did it before.
Yep.
Let's go. Feel what you feel, and then get over it. And then again, remember who you are.
Yep. And you know what? Here's the thing that also just came to mind. So behind you is the vision board. In front of me is a vision board. Put yourself on that vision board to remind yourself of what you've accomplished, right? Keep it in front of you as a reminder, like you did that thing, right? And you can do even more and bigger things and go for it. So you've kind of already touched on this, but I want to ask this question specifically.
Okay.
What do you want the woman watching to walk away and build, or stop waiting to start?
Yes. So I want them to, and I did mention it before, I want them to give themselves gratitude. Like, your old self, thank that version of you, right? Because you needed that version of you to get where you are today, right? You survived. That person, that perfectionist, that people pleaser, that the strong one, right? I'm in rehab from being the strong one too. But that person, you needed to be that person in that moment in your life. There were circumstances in our lives where we had to be that person. Today, we don't have to be that person. So again, give yourself grace. Thank that version of you, because you needed her when you needed her, but now you've outgrown her. And so thank her, recognize her, thank her, and then let her go.
And you know what? Another thing I want to add to that is go ahead and mourn.
Mourn, yes.
Mourn.
You will grieve, because there's a lot that's tied to that. So again, we talk about having that the hyper independence, right? You needed that because somebody in the past hurt you, right? And you having grieved the feelings that come with that, because that person's in the past, like long gone. That person that not even thinking about you anymore. Right. Like, don't even know they hurt you, probably.
Right.
Because we probably kept it to ourselves.
We don't say nothing.
Right. But we held on to the energy that it brought to us, and the hurt that it caused us. And yes, you have to grieve those moments of letting go of that version of you. You got to let her go and grieve it, and then move on.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know what? It's also a safety. It's for sure a safety, right? Blanket type thing. Like, you hold on to that because it's comfortable. It keeps you safe. And it's actually, and it could be a good thing, right? But at some point, when it's keeping you from the life that you want, that's when it's time to go ahead and let that thing go. And so I'm going to ask this as well, which again, we've talked about this a lot, but specifically for the woman wondering if she has what it takes, what permission would you give her?
I give her permission to be all the way her. And sometimes, growing isn't always about adding more to our lives. Sometimes it's about letting go of some of the things to make ourselves lighter so that we can move forward, right? Letting go of all of the chains and the shackles and the bricks and the past and the hurt and the pain. I give you permission to let that go so that you can be who you are today, truly, fully, authentically, and be free, be unshakable, right? Be confident and be unshakable. Be true to who you are. And you don't need to be, what other people want you to be if that's not who you truly are.
I love that. So you don't wait for permission, you become it. Everything rises to meet you. And that's the Dream Lifestyle Standard. So join us inside the Dream Lifestyle Collective for strategy, sisterhood, and structure built for Black women 50 plus. All right. Here's our last one. Before we say goodbye to everybody, before we wrap up, what would you like those watching or listening, what would you like to leave them with?
I think what I would want to leave them with is real short, be unshakable. And if you need help with figuring out what that looks like, find your tribe. You can also follow me on social media. My social media handle is right there. For IG is Dr. Dr. BEE_RANDY. You can catch me on my YouTube, which is BMPowered LLC. So again, be unshakable. Be so confident in yourself where somebody might consider it arrogance, but it's confidence, right? There's a difference between arrogance and confidence. And when you come correct, it's confidence. When it intimidates somebody else, it's arrogance, right? But that's not your problem. That's theirs. So find your right people, find your right tribe, and be unshakable.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Be unshakable. So those that are watching, listening, share this with a woman who needs to be reminded that legacy is what you're building right now. A shout out again to the Leon Thomas group for production. And we'll be back next week and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern here or your favorite podcast platform with Santana Ennis. She is the founder and executive director of the GLOW Initiative. Until next week.